guess you could say we are well and truly powered up, so let's get in there. So, welcome each and every one of you to Nano Boost. Now, the reason why the lighting at first may look a little bit weird and why the shadow is so behind me is because my main light currently doesn't work and it's like nearly midnight, so I kind of wanted to do this on the very spur of the moment sort of thing, because over the last week I have been getting myself back to the gym, and I've had a little bit of an on-off relationship with the gym in recent years. To be honest, most of it sometimes was about cutting out a little bit of fat on my belly. Sometimes it was just a prerequisite to relieving as much stress as I could possibly muster. Now, however, it's a little bit different than that, because I actually want to put a bit of mass on. I want to give my shoulders the attention it rightfully deserves. I want to give my chest, my abdomen, my legs, every single part of my body that sort of glow up it's been asking for many years. And so, yeah, that's kind of how all the story began, because when I rejoined last week, I got myself on a program. And it's basically 5 days in a row, and then take a break for 2 days, and then head back for another 5 days. So that means Monday to Friday, Saturday and Sunday off, back in again, Monday to Friday. Very, very basic insofar as organization is concerned. But already in 1 week, in sticking to this plan, I am prepared to say that actually... well, you know what, I'll tell you what, I'll show you a little bit about what it looks like now, because it may not look, you know, overtly that impressive, but let me phrase it to you guys another way. I feel that it sort of took shape a little bit faster than I thought it was going to be, and I've got to be honest as well, and especially because really for only like the first real time in my life, I've actually done quite a lot of things for my back. I know it probably, again, on the back of it, probably doesn't... On the back of it, yeah. I honestly don't ask me to write my own jokes. So nobody will laugh. But basically, it may not look anything that impressive, but I can assure you, for what everything I've managed to do for it, I think it's coming along quite nicely. Of course, this is just the beginning, because what time is it now? Oh yeah, midnight, the 26th of July, 2026. So, in about 12 months from now, I want to, like, shoulders to be, like, even burlier than before, chest to be, like, way out here and just as wide, six-pack, not only to be chiseled, but one that you can almost, like, make out for quite nicely, and basically, where I go from this to this. And just cut a little bit of this out, and that's sort of what we're looking for. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's probably going to take a little bit of work, but to be honest, what a little bit of work and a little bit of effort, it does go for an incredibly long distance. So that's what we're focusing this channel on. This channel is all about, well, about a transformation. Because I've discussed on other channels that I currently run that a lot of my work ethic goes into changing, metamorphosis, if you will, mentally and, you know, economically, socially as well. Whereas this is strictly for the physical. This is about getting like a real nano boost. And for those who may understand better, nano boost basically means, oh, by the way, I'm not naked or anything like that. Look. See, I've got pants on and stuff like that, just so everyone was squared and stuff like that. Anyway, as I was saying, all we have to do is stick to this program. May have to do a little bit of a shifting in my diet every so often, and we'll have to see how it goes, eh? But for all intents and purposes, I'm actually very, very happy about how things are going at the moment. I know, however, that there's lots of work to be done, and guess what? Work will be done and shall be done. right now, that's all we've got going on right now, and this is the project going forwards. So I hope you guys are ready, because guess what? This is going to take some time, 12 months to be exact. But right now, there is work to be done. Always more work. Hello and welcome back. So, I wanted to take this opportunity to explain a little bit more about maybe why I wanted to make this transformation. Because there's questions that need to be asked about why do I want to have a physically superior body and, well, superior everything. So if you don't mind me, let's get straight to that, shall we? So the first thing I want to say is that this is sort of kind of the thing I've always wanted to have since round about the time I finished high school 10 years ago. Because by the time I finally left at 18, I felt like, well, I'm now ready to sort of be a part of the outside world. Which anyone who's ever finished school will know that that's like a really big undertaking. Because even here I stand at 28 and I still feel like I haven't really been out there yet. I think I've went through a lot of things that people suffer from when they finally get out there. But to really stand on my own, to actually meet hundreds of thousands of people that I've always wanted to meet, or ones that I did not know I always wanted to meet, I still feel as if I'm a little bit stuck in here somewhat. Now, that might not sound like overtly that interesting or really play into this role, but let me explain it a little bit further. So, as some of you may know, I'm actually, for the first time since I've been going to the gym, I am finally on a program. Here's sort of an explanation as to why I wasn't really on one of those sorts of programs before. Mostly because when I go to the gym previously, it was sort of as a way to like kick back, to relax, or to release a little bit of pressure. Which is sort of a little bit of how I've actually managed to handle stress over the years. Again, since round about the time I finished high school, is by going to the gym for, it could be sometimes as many as 4 hours I would stay at the gym. And sometimes, like when I'm really, really stressed out, I will work myself up into a state, and when I legitimately feel like I can't do any more, something clicks in the back of my mind, and all of a sudden I feel as enraged as ever before, and before you know it, bang, straight back in there, and I am, well, caked in sweat. It's why I had to start the habit of like bringing a full set of extra clothing with me, because there's no way I'll be able to walk all the way home with every epidermis of my body literally covered in sweat. Literally, if the sun was still out right now, it would literally shine and it would blind people. To be honest, I feel like it almost blinds people right now. Sad but true. So anyway, as I was saying, quite a lot of my time it's just about, a way of relieving pressure, and sometimes I kind of feel like loosening the valve somewhat is a really, really good idea in order to keep my health in check. And I think that's why some people have argued why I look. They say that I haven't aged a day since I actually finished high school, and outside of a possibly receding hairline, and partly due to that little habit that I know some people, when like you tap, you feel like your leg shakes uncontrollably. That's that's quite, and this has been ongoing since I was about 13, by the way. But I heard that the reason why some people do it is because they try and like excrete a little bit of pressure in their body, and sometimes, just so that people can't see it, they do it in very abnormal ways, such as involuntary shaking of the legs. Or possibly one leg. There was a habit where it was like both legs that were doing it, but whether you want to chalk that up to the pressure was at boiling point, and if I didn't do it, I probably would have self-destructed, or whether or not that's just really, really over-exaggerating the situation, I'll leave it to your guys' imagination. Now, what's certainly true is that that's kind of really what I was focusing on when I was going down to the gym, to making sure that any sense of doubt or pressure, grief, pain, rage, agony, all of that bad stuff, by making sure it did not linger on my body for as long as necessary. That's why I've managed to possibly because I feel like stress is one of those things where it kind of isn't it one of the things where it kind of like dries out your face somewhat and it causes your body to age a little bit more, or I don't know if it's got like anything to do with like skin or anything like that, but well, whatever the case may be, I feel like that's how I've managed to possibly maintain my youth a little bit, or at the very least, how it's brought upon endless questioning about how old I actually am. Some people say I look about as young as 20. Some say I look about as old as 40. And the fact that I'm not even 30 yet is alone makes me feel very, very confused. Still, in fairness, there's always perks about the idea of people thinking you're quite a lot older, and that is, well, I feel like it almost sets a precedent. As in, if that's what people think of me, and if that's the way people look at me, then you know what? Maybe there's a part of me saying that I should act like a 40-year-old. You see, the only problem with this idea is that, well, I could hardly have what you might describe as like an adolescence. Well, technically I did. I was a teenager once, but insofar as my upbringing was concerned, it was just another way of people hammering into me that I was just as much of a problem as humanly possible, and that I was there just to be kept in line. Because in the words of the famous song, they say teenagers scare the living shit out of me. I try my best not to swear for these because I kind of, don't really want to do that, but you get the idea. Anyway, but the point is that there are some people who are so utterly scared of teenagers and think that teenagers are so completely out of control that the only way to keep someone like me in line was to really hammer it home to me about very strict rules and very severe consequences for breaking them. I don't quite know what they were so scared of me for. Literally, I am like you would not believe the sort of person I was when I was a teenager. I was very softly spoken. I was the sort of person you would see and never hear from. I kept myself to, I mean, I had mates and all that in school, but there were points where I think other people preferred if I was on my own, and sometimes I really got used to the idea of just being on my own. And you know what? There were times where it suited me just fine. Not all the time, but owing to, the experience of my life and the memories I uphold and maintain, that's just sort of how it is. And I can't say if it was bad or good, but just whatever the case, it did happen. Though owing to circumstances about the school I was at, I guess you could argue the powers that be, as well as people closest to me, knew fine well that this was not a good idea. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily make too much of a thing about it, but I was told only about a year or two ago that the high school that I went to, I got told privately by people who will not be mentioned that I should not have gone to that school. Which either suggests, one, they had consideration about putting me somewhere else, or possibly somewhere in which they would have to monitor, so to speak, or not so much monitor, but rather put in a facility where kids would require just a little bit extra attention, so to speak. However, again, what difference any of that would have made in terms of where I'm at right now, I can't say. There's no way of telling, and to be honest, I think it's almost irrelevant at this stage, because surprisingly, quite a lot of how I think and feel hasn't really changed that much since I left school. But that's kind of really all the person I was, and it's not so much I was afraid of stepping out and trying new things and just exploring. Because I knew fine well that I was perfectly capable of doing it, and there's no power or force to stop me. But the thing that kind of did stop me a little bit, and it's maybe the sort of thing that held me back from being on a program or anything like that, was, well, the idea that failure is always inevitable, and that ultimately there's single-handedly no use in trying. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to really put my hand on my heart when I say this, is that I'm no stranger to failure. I'm no stranger to the dice being loaded, and I simply have to make do and accept whatever I get given. I'm no stranger to putting my case forward, for really putting my balls on the line for something, and ultimately I don't get a look in, and I'm no stranger to people taking advantage of me. I'm no stranger, and all of those things are terrible. And guess what? I'm not the only person this is happening to. There are people that this is happening to as we speak right now, all over the world. Somebody once tried to explain that to me, like it's a really good cure for self-pity to think about the people like yourself who are being taken advantage of, but people who are in a far worse position than I am right now. It hardly needs explaining, but you would probably know automatically what I mean, in terms of, people much less fortunate. Now listen, that's all well and good, but the problem is that doesn't change my situation. It doesn't change the fact that I'm still here. Sometimes I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels, and I try to get one step forward and I get pushed 2 steps back due to unforeseen circumstances, shortfalls, pitfalls, disasters. And sometimes when a disaster does happen, and sometimes my grief is a little painful to watch, which is probably the reasons why I don't really want to talk about my grief that much, because it always seems to come back to, what did I actually do to deserve that? And I feel like, and to be honest, people just sort of agree to just let me wallow a little bit and then kind of get up and move on. And to be honest, even at this stage of my life, where my philosophy has sort of changed in being extremely proactive, but nevertheless, gym or no gym, there are some scenarios where the reality of certain hard-boiled scenarios, it's a little bit much even for me to take. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And even when disasters, even of late, happen to me, and trying to sweat all of it out is good in theory, but again, there's also a part of me that thinks that, well, it hasn't changed anything. I might have saved myself a bit of stress and maybe some health difficulties, because mind you, ever since being on this program, my attitude to food has also shifted dramatically. But yeah, so, and that's there's no other way of putting it. If I really want things to change, if I really want things to get better and better, I feel like, I don't know, maybe I just need a little bit. I wish people would have a little bit more faith in me and understood sort of why I do things the way I do. And by the way, in case anybody's watching this right now, I'll just say for the record, I don't have a problem with the word help, but I do have a problem that I will ask for help. People say they're willing to help, and then that's the last you hear from them. They don't really want to help you. They just sort of, I don't know what exactly they get out of it by lying about wanting help or anything like that. I think for the most part, however, that's kind of why maybe I've taken to a program, and why in the span of a week, it may not look it as much, and again, I don't exactly, maybe there are probably people who say I don't look impressive no matter how much work I put into it, but I do feel there is a very specific shift in like in terms of like the shape of my body, like how my shoulders are becoming even broader, my chest is like larger than ever, my abdomen is starting to take shape really nicely. The muscles on my like honestly for such a long time I felt like the actual muscle on my calf was actually thicker than the bone and everything else besides on my legs. And yeah, I must admit that there are some quite noticeable changes just on the surface, but it's everything else that happens behind or just underneath the surface is what I want to emerge as well. I want people to see that I will literally almost sweat my guts out just to make this work and to become even better. Because you know what? I may sometimes have a little bit of a defeatist attitude at times, owing to the futility of effort, and sometimes there is a little bit of a futility to things. Not always, but sometimes there is. At the same time, however, that hasn't stopped me from trying before, so what exactly is stopping me now? But the problem is that if I try, if I keep going, then I'll have to keep going and keep going and keep going, even on days where I would rather quit than try. That just might prove to be the most important day of them all. So, for what they're worth, just before we finish, yes, sometimes it can be a bit of a pain in the arse to try. Why, however, I still try is because, guess what? I'm not ready to call it a day yet. I'm not ready to throw in the towel. You know what? Bad things happen to me. You know, sometimes that's life. We've accepted that. It does not mean to say the rest of my life is going to be ruined off of the back of 3 bad years at university, or the fact that people can just have their way with me and they expect me to do nothing. There's quite a lot I can do, and now is certainly the time. So, for all they are worth, I hope I've tried my best to explain myself, and there may be people watching this right now who probably understand the dilemma and understand sometimes that, again, starting again seems rough and almost like we're just going insane by trying the same things over and over again. However, I know that it's possible. I just, we'll just have to wait and see, eh? With that being said, there is work to be done. Always more work. So, when are we going to be unstoppable? Answer: these things take time. They take patience. They take reevaluations. They take trial and error. They take testing, and they take something a little bit more powerful than strength: effort. Now, we can really stand here for like the next 10 hours and I could talk ad nauseum about all of the factors I've just mentioned. But however, let's talk about probably the most important of them, and that is effort. A few weeks ago, when I was on night shift, I was standing at a table, and all the rest of the chairs on my table were like there's a rule where I'm supposed to stand on one side of the table and I'm not allowed to like go to the other side of the table. But basically, customers had like pulled out some of the chairs, they played a bit, and then they left, and they didn't like put the chairs back in. And I remember when I got took off, the first thing I did, because these chairs were like out of place for like nearly an hour and a half, and you would see people come and go, and they kind of like had to struggle to get past. And well, to be honest, not one of them ever had the thought to just, I don't know, tuck the chair in and make their journey just that little bit easier to do. I can tell you when this took place, by the way. It was when England played Mexico in the World Cup. But the fact of the matter is this, is that when I was taken off, I immediately got round and I pushed all 7 of the chairs back in. And I explained to them that literally I couldn't stand to like watch that any longer, and it was low key quite painful to watch when people just couldn't even be bothered, so to speak, to just do it, just to make everyone's lives a little bit easier. Somebody paraphrased it to me, saying that they may lack the strength to be able to push the chairs back in. I said something really, really telling at that moment. And there are some moments in your life, believe it or not, where you feel like your character is fixed forever. Maybe not so much by what you do, although that is absolutely in question as well, but it's also about what you say. It's also about what you manage to display and how you can convey about what you do, to almost not so much justify your actions, but to explain your actions. And the explanation I gave was that strength is completely irrelevant. It takes effort to do something as nonchalant and probably not as important as pushing a chair back in. Mind you, with that being said, and bear in mind, this isn't just the sort of thing that happens overnight. This is the sort of attitude I think I've had towards things since I was, well, either 10 or 11 years old. Everything has its place, and everything should be put exactly back where it belongs. It's not an OCD thing. It should be, well, how hard is it to like move a chair back into place, or ensuring everything is where it is, so that the next person knows exactly where A, B, and C are, because it is in cupboards A, B, and C, drawer A, B, and C, etc. So one of the things that I always try to make it as plain as day is that this is not an act, by the way. I've been making videos on the internet now for 8 years, and everything... there's a reason why I do not have scripts for when I do my videos, because everything comes from in here as well as in here. And when both work in tandem, it is, well, quite literally like a tandem bicycle. Everything works as it should be, and everything works like clockwork. And the great advantage of things working like clockwork is that a clock, or watch as the case might be, it only works if every single cog meshes in unison. Things only work when everything and everyone plays their part. That's why sometimes I've been a little bit hesitant about the idea of like teamwork and stuff like that. It's because, well, yes, everybody in some small way does pull on the rope. It's just some people do come across, and listen, I've been there as well. I come across as sometimes quite indignant at the thought that I'm pulling above and beyond my end of the rope, and somebody isn't. Now, with that being said, not everybody is as strong as me, and that's even from a physical perspective. Because, well, I remember like about 2 hours ago, I had to lobby like this huge section of carpet from my car to like this container because I was at the dump. And not gonna lie, have you actually ever felt how heavy it is to remove about nearly 100 yards worth of carpet on your shoulders? It's not exactly the easiest thing to do, especially even when you like roll it up into a cylindrical fashion. But at the same time, you know what? I am still equal to it. I'm also equal to doing things of probably even equal with stressful measures. Like, for example, twice in my life, I applied for the British Army, specifically for the paratroopers. And as a means of trying to prove myself that physically I was capable of doing it, I underwent quite a unique series of stress tests in order to show that what happens when I'm pushed beyond breaking point. And the surprising factor about this is that you would be hard pressed to testify to the contrary about, well, what exactly I'm actually capable of doing. You would actually as well be very, very surprised about what you can actually do if you put your mind to it. And when, again, everything works in tandem and everything meshes and comes together. And yet, I still didn't get into the British Army, in spite of everything that I did. Not without trying, and not without trying to make my case to the recruitment officers that I had like interviews with during this period, including even I even remember one time when I was like chatting to a PT instructor. Even he admitted to me that it's a tremendous show of will and attitude that, you know what, even if you don't get in, I think what you've managed to display is that you can actually do whatever you want in this world. And guess what? That attitude will carry you a very long way, because maybe it's not about, again, you have the strength, but rather if you actually have the effort to bother to try at all. For some people, the thought of showing effort is almost a little too much for them. And well, listen, you may say that sounds quite harsh to say, but to be fair now, I also do believe that there are plenty of people who live in our current society who are simply not equal to the sort of efforts that are demanded of people. And but well, bear in mind, it's and it might be down to very legitimate things, physically or mentally. And I'm not going to start by saying, you know, those people don't deserve a place because they don't pull on the rope. That's not really fair. And you know what? One of these days I might even dedicate a few videos here and there about, you know what, there are people who actually need help, and no amount of me saying you and I are unstoppable is going to prevent the notion that just because somebody is told it doesn't necessarily make it true, nor does it actually affect or change anything. That's kind of one of the things that actually I've long since been willing to testify, is the fact that I don't need to be told about what I am or who I am. I know perfectly well who I am and what I am, and therefore when that tactic doesn't work, there is only one thing left to do, and that is, well, to do it for myself. Because I don't, you know, make all these videos, go to the extent of trying to like reinvent myself to be a very different sort of person. I don't do it for the benefit of earning people's admiration and respect. If people want to give me admiration and respect, you know, they're more than free to do so. But I don't do it specifically to earn the ire and attention of other people. I do it for myself. Which may sound like a bit of a self-indulgence sort of idea, but at the same time, it's because, well, that's genuinely what I want to be able to focus on. And I can't start giving advice or start saying that I know what's right and wrong if my house is not 100% in order and clean. But what I was trying to say earlier is that moving away a little bit from those who actually require extra attention that in some way might be even a little beyond my sound advice. I mean, to be fair, that's a great case right there. Yes, I'll be able to like pull on the rope, shift carpet back and forth, push myself beyond breaking point from a physical standpoint. But there are also some things, I will admit, that even on the surface look incredibly tough and a little beyond my jurisdiction and abilities. For example, knowing exactly what to do for like in an emergency, for example. Sometimes I must admit I feel like I shouldn't be like, you know, exasperated or scared, especially when what my actions might result in somebody living or dying. And that sort of responsibility is incredibly difficult. And it's always about the fear of, if you make the wrong decision, it could cost somebody their life, or it could trigger a deadly chain of events. And it's the sort of thing that, well, is incredibly daunting on people. It's that sort of responsibility. Now listen, I don't dispute the idea that if I was endowed with that sort of responsibility, I actually believe I can do it if I just got down to it. But at the same time, it can't be denied that, well, if something did go wrong, forget about me being the cause of all of it. It could result in an innocent bystander losing their life. I remember when I was training as a railway service engineer, and I got told about how to make the emergency call, and how it could be the difference between 30 people dying on the railways if I made one mistake, which is a tall order for anybody in question. But you've got to realize that you are the one who has to make the call, and if you're not 100%, then guess what? Don't do it. And it's not exactly cowardice either. It's just straight up admitting that you feel almost afraid to do something. I see how interesting it is when you talk of somebody who brags a little bit about strength and about a positive attitude. And in the course of the last 3 minutes, I've just admitted to being scared and almost feeling a little terrified at the prospect of responsibility that could entail the safety of so many people. You see what I'm getting at? But I still also want to go back to just saying patience and time is going to come and go accordingly. And when you're willing to put as much effort as you can into something, guess what? If you really do want it to work out, then guess what? Nature will take its course very naturally, and guess what? You will find a way to do it. If you really are serious about doing it, then guess what? Why not crack on with it? Because insofar as I'm concerned, to boil it down to the most basic of factors of them all, I think that there are, in secret, only two types of people on this earth. Those who can't or won't versus those who can and do. As I said previously, there are a lot of exceptions to this rule, and there's a lot of reasons to suspect that, guess what? You know what? It's not entirely their fault if they are completely unable or completely unequal to whatever is being demanded or asked from somebody. And considering that this world can sometimes feel cold and a little bit too demanding for people, guess what? It's probably no surprise as to why people probably don't even make it to the first hurdle. However, now is not the time for doubt. Now is the time, once again, to be looking ahead. And once you have an end goal set in stone or set on a particular date, then guess what? It means the clock is counting down and we are well and truly up against it. So, there we have it, guys. A very short form little essay about the implications of effort and how there are some things a little more powerful than just strength. But with all that being said and done, I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. And continuing the trend of being unstoppable, now we have to ask the question of, well, where are we unstoppable? Well, take away the W and you probably got our level. Yeah, believe it or not, this one is actually going to be less of a look at the world in a realistic sort of light, but rather look at things a little bit with a little bit of a suspension of disbelief. Because believe it or not, you probably don't even need my advice, because you already in this part of space and time are already unstoppable. You just don't know it yet. And believe it or not, I was in a very, very similar position myself, where I wasn't quite conscious of what really was my own strength. And that was when I realized what my own strength was. My own strength was that actually I could do and be anything that I wanted to be. Which, yes, that may or may not have been borrowed a little bit from Blue's Clues, but what can I say? That show is literally going to stay locked in my brain for probably the rest of my life, because it is, when you start to think about it, they were right about an awful lot of things, from recycling to learning how to share, and even about building a little bit of self-confidence, because believe it or not, it's not just at that crucial early part of your life where you start to take notice of your surroundings and everything in between. But think about when you get to adulthood. You think that these are the sorts of things that you should know already, but knowing and doing are two very, very separate things. And you may have heard me over a few times voice the feeling and sentiment of there are only two types of people in this world. There are those who can't or won't, and then there are those that can and do. And sometimes, if you feel like you don't particularly know which side you really stand on, let me just refresh you guys a little bit of a refresher for what they're worth. Maybe it's not a bad thing at all to possibly go back to something, maybe something that you remember from your early childhood. Like, you know what? If I could get my hands on like a copy of like every single version of the UK version of Blue's Clues and watch it from start to finish, I think I probably would. Why? Because why not take it back to very basics? Why not take it back to what I was taught? Why not take it back to the things that I feel like I should know through my endless experience and the fun I had watching Blue's Clues? Because lo and behold, there were some fantastic shows I remember when I was like a really young kid. Chief among one of these things as well, Little Bill. And whilst many people probably discountenance, Little Bill because of, well, its association with Bill Cosby, I will, however, on the other hand, I'll say this much. Bill Cosby, he's an absolute POS, don't get me wrong. But that's not really the show's fault. The show doesn't condone any of that. Nothing about the show condones anything like that. Nothing about the show is meant to imply or suggest whatsoever that, guess what? Things like Bill Cosby did, they should be straight up what everyone else should follow. That's not really, like, listen, I know Nickelodeon has had, like, that bad rep for, guys like Dan Schneider, but at the same time, like, think about it this way. Was anything that, Bill Cosby did, like, was that the show's fault? You may argue Nickelodeon or Viacom, I suppose, may have a hand in saying, well, they endorsed the show, despite the fact that, again, what Cosby was up to was probably not hush-hush, but at the same, like I said, Bill Cosby doesn't actually play a role in the show, apart from, well, it being more or less a series of stories about, his I think it was about his own son who died very tragically when he got older, but that's kind of just what I'm trying to put at. Why not take it back to things that I grew up with, things that I knew, and I could work out, guess what? How that makes me unstoppable again. Because if you want to know again about the here and now, what you occupy in space and time, it's, again, not exactly the worst thing in the world to take it right back to basics. Take it back to simple questions you were probably told when you were a kid, like the difference between right and wrong, the difference between right and wrong. What do you like? What do you like to do? What do you like to eat? Who are your friends? What do you like about your friends? What do you want to be? And when you start boiling it down to things like that, it's a great way to not so much reinvent yourself, but to reintroduce yourself. Share to the world, or possibly share to your friends, your family, your loved ones, your best friends, that guess what? Actually, this is who you are, and it's all you've ever wanted to be. Because you can take pride and comfort in the fact that you're being truthful with yourself. I think those sorts of things make you unstoppable. Chief among which is that, is there any force to stop you? That's the thing about the present day here. That what I discussed was more about the past sort of here, in terms of where you were, which in turn makes you unstoppable. But what about the right here and right now? How does being here right now make you unstoppable? Well, it's because you've got here so far, and you know what? not everything works out for the best. And even I stand here right now and listen, I've had many blunders in my life. Many things I know absolutely I am responsible for. Sometimes I don't feel like everything that happened to me was my fault. But at the same time, as if we stand right now, I know there are many things that I am responsible for. And, well, you just have to take accountability for everything you can do and you have done. That's just straight up part of being an adult, I guess, is learning to understand that what you do is your thing. And sometimes there is no such thing as good or bad. There are only consequences. Good consequences or bad consequences. The point is you pay the consequences for the choices you make. And it doesn't work in any other way, and other people can't be held responsible for what you do personally. But because of what I do personally, that's what makes me believe I am unstoppable right here and right now, because insofar as I'm concerned, there is no force, power or earth to stop me. Then we come to the where in terms of future tense. Where in the future are you going to be unstoppable? Simple answer, well, where do you want to be in 10 years' time? And guess what? I hope, more than anything else, I will still be here in 10 years. I hope I will be here for the next 50 years. Because guess what? If we've managed to come this far, and I've managed to face, adversity, issues with self-confidence, managing to stay sober for nearly a whole year, guess what? I don't think it's particularly out of the question to say, guess what? Think about what we've managed to do so far, think about what we're doing right now, and just think of what we can do tomorrow. However, tomorrow isn't here yet, but what is here is probably just as important as any other, because it is the right here and right now. And one of the most fantastic things about living today is that I do sort of feel the master of my own destiny. I feel that whatever I choose to do, I can be whoever I want to be. And there's no power on this earth or above the earth to stop it. So, what makes us unstoppable, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I'm about to share with all of you. Well, certainly what I feel like makes me unstoppable is my persistence, my undesirable, anticipated levels of rage, testosterone, pressure, all in here, and especially in here. I feel that there's something almost kicking and screaming at the seams to come out. And when that sort of thing happens is when you know fine well that you can't take it anymore. And the only thing to do is to literally do whatever it takes to let it all out. Now, I say that alone is probably a good explanation as to what's going to make us unstoppable, because you can't exactly dampen the flame of ambition for too long, because you can't exactly extinguish ambition. Because to extinguish ambition is to extinguish hope, fear, courage, greed. It's to wipe all of it out of existence. And unfortunately, you can't really do that. I know there are some people out there who think they can do that. However, they can't do that. Because ultimately, that means there is a way of actually stopping people. When in reality, there is no way to stop people. Even if 10,000 people came out of the horizon and told me to stop, surprisingly, there is no force there's nothing that's going to compel me to be stopped. As well as, guess what? There shouldn't be any compulsion or compunction whatsoever for anyone to tell you to stop. Because are you really going to stop? The more you think about it, no, not really. There's been plenty of people in my past who I know have been trying to tell me to stop. There have also been people out there who have also told me never to start. And guess what? Where are all those people now? They are stuck in the past. They are distant memories. They mean nothing to my present and my future, because that is in my past. And I suppose this whole talk of trying to be unstoppable, it's the sort of thing that does open up fresh memories about all the times where my ambition, my intrigue, my ideas, my everything that makes me who I am. I remember what it's like when it's actually met with people who have in no way the sort of level of ambition or desire that I have. And the result is, well, rather interesting to say the least. But what I can say is that, well, just like everything else I mentioned, those sorts of people are stuck in my past and they play no role in my present or my future. That is also going to make you unstoppable, is the fact that there is nobody in the present to stop you. Because all the people who told you to stop in the past, they are stuck in the past. And they're certainly not getting free anytime soon. That's what doesn't make us unstoppable right now. And it's that sort of trail of logic is also what's going to make us unstoppable in the future. Because if there was no voice or person or event that stopped us before, is there really going to be an event to stop us in the future? Really? Is anyone going to do that? And if so, who exactly is going to stop me? No one, it would seem. And because I think deep down inside, there are hundreds of thousands of people just like me as well, who have this burning desire stuck in here or wherever it may be, and it is longing to come up for air, to be released, to be freed. And I think quite a lot of people can understand that plight, because guess what? Everybody deep down inside wants to be something unbelievably extravagant, something special, something that they will be remembered forever, and everyone can see just what it means to other people. And I reckon if we weren't too far away from that notion, then guess what? We couldn't be any closer to it. And it's the sort of thing that keeps us chomping at the bit, and the thing that keeps me going every single day, knowing exactly that I have a future to look forward to and nothing that can remain stuck in the past. Remember the old adage, ladies and gentlemen, the beast doesn't change. When the beast is hungry, it wants feeding. And guess what? Somehow or other, it will find a way to get fed. And with all that being said and done, let that be known what makes us unstoppable. The fact that the beast is hungry once again. So, it is always worth considering, even at this stage of proceedings, who makes us unstoppable. For it is strongly to be argued that whilst I claim to boast about being unstoppable, and whilst I claim to boast that it's actually really, really easy with a little bit of mental gymnastics, that I can make other people unstoppable as well. So, who really is the one, who is the mastermind behind all of this? Because it would be easy for me to say that, guess what, I'm the one responsible for it. But actually, if you look deep down inside yourselves, bizarrely enough, the answer is not even too far away from this. Maybe we are the ones who have made us unstoppable. I spoke previously about how people from my past have in no way paused or ever managed to halt my progress before. So it could be argued that the only person who has made us unstoppable is us. Maybe we are really the ones behind all of this. I mean, think about it seriously. Did I, for any reason, chose to continue to make these sorts of videos? If for no other reason, then guess what? I'm the one who decided. No, probably not convinced. Well, how about this? How about the fact that what actually makes us unstoppable, makes us the sort of force to be contended with, is not only have we refused any and all attempts to be stopped, but the fact is we not only will not stop, but we will keep going. Is it down to the fact that we have refused to be intimidated, refused to be bullied, refused to be swept aside? Is the reality of things the fact that we are unstoppable because there is no force in the universe to stop us? And guess what? It had to come from somewhere. And whilst there's certainly a lot of room for maneuver in terms of explaining about heroes, figures, guidance figures and whatnot who have made us who we are today, it also cannot be denied that, well, learning is 2% knowledge and 98% practicalities, aka the things that we have managed to put into place. It's entirely possible that this entire voyage, this entire journey, has been built on the fact that whatever the case may be, we are the ones to do it. We are the ones who have taken the big leap. And far from being thrown out of the game, we are much deeper into the game than ever before. And it might be within a year's time, perhaps, maybe even a shorter time as that, where we will be so deep into this game that, guess what? The only way forwards is victory, because it will be within our sight. And there are some people who are knocking about right now who are literally on the cusp of victory being in sight. But here's the slight rum about victory, is that you believe victory is in sight. You even believe that you are holding victory in your hands. However, where you have won one victory, but there is another game waiting for you, and the process starts all over again. You climb one mountain. It must have been the site the Hannibal must have saw when his troops, they first scaled the Pyrenees, and Hannibal turned around and said, "No, those were not the Alps. Those are the Alps." Probably the elephants probably had just as much of a shock of dismay. However, sometimes I think that's just what life is all about. It is ascending one mountain to ascend another immediately next. And certainly in like the last 8 months in which I have been going at full steam, not only making videos on the internet, but also getting my life back together one step at a time, a lot of that has involved accepting the fact that there is only one person in the universe who can get me out of this hole, and that is myself. I neither rely on no God, no government. I know that I am pretty much in it and will be in it till the very end, or until such time has passed where I am perfectly satisfied with the amount of victories I've won, and it will all come to speak for itself. However, we're not quite there yet, so that is what's going to make us unstoppable, or rather, who makes us unstoppable. Because guess what? Once we proclaim the fact that we are the ones who are unstoppable, guess what? The next person watching this may feel a little unstoppable too, or at the very least, will want to play just as much. And finally, the final sort of like part 6 of this little mini series we've been on, and that is, how are we unstoppable? And I think this is probably the easiest one to solve yet. And what better way to conclude this whole little side adventure with a how? How does anything we've said so far actually make us unstoppable? Because we are all free. Some people may argue the semantics of what it really means to be free, but what we're talking about is being free up here, and you're all right. I think that's going to need a little bit of elaboration. So, you know how sometimes if you go onto, let's say, social media, and you see videos saying, you need to vote for this, or you need to believe in what we're showing you is that, and that you need to believe hear every single thing we say and do, and don't question it. Whenever you see stuff like that, you have to, well, certainly one thing I do is automatically come to the innate conclusion, maybe more before anything else, that actually, who says I have to believe in what everyone says, tells, or asks me to do? surprisingly enough, this is where the whole thing of freedom really comes into play, because I am allowed to completely think and decide and feel for myself. Nobody has the power or influence to tell me what to do, as if I have no choice but to obey. Of course I have a choice. Everybody has a choice. Much as a person has a choice not to rise to violence when somebody starts becoming a bit leery with somebody, or I have the choice to flatly deny when somebody straight up gives me an order with a passive-aggressive undertone to it. I am a free man. And when you sort of draw the same sort of conclusions as I do about what it really means to be free, not only free in sound body and mind, but intellectually, that you're free to investigate, make your own decisions, make your own mistakes, to be able to learn from your mistakes, and to continue to do as you please, all without real too much agitation or pardon, then all of a sudden you feel actually quite well for it. And it's a kind of euphoria that sometimes comes into my life every couple of years. And I don't know if it's from the sense of accomplishment, knowing that I've managed to do something completely on my own, something that nobody told me to go and do, nobody asked me to do, and sometimes people will say that there is no inherent or even monetizable reward at stake to win or lose from doing such a thing. When all of that is said and done, I still went ahead and did it anyway, because, as I said before, nobody can actually tell me what to do or can actually make me do something that I don't want to do. I am free. And free also means being unstoppable. Because if there is no force to stop you, then why not consider yourself unstoppable? And that is the sort of thing that I reckon is going to take me quite a number of places in this world. And guess what? Free doesn't even, or even unstoppable, does not necessarily mean to say that nobody can step in my way. On the contrary, there's actually quite a things I like to do for being unstoppable. I remember it was about 2 months ago when I was in London. One of the first things I did when I finally got into my hotel room in Hammersmith is that I went to get my hair cut. And so I went to this small little Turkish barber's just on the corner. And I remember I got into this really excitable conversation between myself and the barber. I asked him how long had he been in London. We had a really, really good back and forth, and it didn't even seem to matter that we stayed talking for about 40 minutes. Because, to be honest, I think he enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Maybe he had a particularly slow day, and maybe he was pining for somebody to talk to. And you know what? I'm glad that this happened, because guess what? Being unstoppable means that I can be anybody that I choose to be. And there's also been something of a bit of a lapse, so to speak, in that sometimes I feel like I could have been more than what I currently am now. But I think all of that draws into what are you, or what is you, or who are you, or when are you, or what are you, etc., etc. And these are the sorts of things that do have to come into play, maybe in a slightly different video. But from what I can understand, at least from my own experience, is that there are some things I know are fundamentally wrong to do and wrong to be. But I also know, for one reason or another, there are some things that I have never stopped being and continue to want to be. And hopefully I will become even better at what I am already. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes I think it does boil down to things I stated a few videos ago, where I talked about take it back to perhaps maybe your early childhood. Take it back to perhaps a stage at which you were just learning to take notice of things. And what was the response when you put some of those things into practice? And what was the result of some things that you put into practice that may not have turned out to be quite for the best? This is a very pivotal sort of moment in my life, it would seem, because there's less than 18 months to go until I turn 30. I would have been on this earth for nearly 30 years, and I still think, even during this time, I have yet to really come out of my shell. I still think there's so much I have left to learn and so much to do, and sometimes not enough time in the world to do it. But with that being said, those are just some of the things that make us unstoppable. And how are we going to become even more so? Never stop being yourself. Because nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can tell you not to be who you are, and nobody, especially me, can ever tell you that, guess what, there is anything inherently wrong with being happy, because you are happiest when you can truly be yourself. And for me, being myself means being unstoppable, being myself. And with that being said, this is just the introduction to this channel. Now we've established what makes us, how, when, where, why, and how we are unstoppable. We've established almost the ground floor, the foundations, exactly the blueprint of everything that makes us, or certainly makes myself, want to become unstoppable. So that at any rate is the theory. The practice, however, is what is coming up next. Because now we've established a formula, now we have to establish the rule. And the rule is probably a little harder to put into words, but I will certainly find a way. Everyone has a way, and my way is to be unstoppable. One step at a time. But in the meantime, there is work to be done. Always more work. Thank you.